Alright, everybody, Min-Max Munchkin back with another video. First and foremost, Mike, Matthew, Ewing, Larry, Hocken, BardlyManHardlyTrying, Rogor, SuburbanHell, Frank Fan, Jared Henderson, Kaleron, Albert Kwak, Aidan Harth, Darth Xín, Gary Course, Matthew Collins, Brad Oldham, Joel C Alcazar, Zachary, Bradley, Rich Million, Jeremy Helton, Bredwin, your boy Fox, Bryan Moten, Sean, Cory Williams, Chris Pell, Mannozzi Stefano, Claire, Zeb McCubbin, Nathan James, Spiffy, Primal Bass, Booze, Bitten Bee, Bitten By, not sure how it's pronounced, Kyle Shike, Trevor Green, Matthew Brown, Gaston Ramirez, Jordan Smith-Basset, Tyler Charles, Heliostorm, Lloyd, and Lord Gazda. Thank you for your continued support, all new and old patrons. Without your support, I probably wouldn't be releasing videos as frequently as I am lately. This extensive list of people has given me plenty of reasons to do so. If you are one of the rare few listening to this interested in chucking a buck my way, the option is always there. It's gonna be linked down below in the description of this video. It's not mandatory, but it's definitely much appreciated and welcome if you think that I'm worth your money, worth your time, worth your effort, whatever you think I'm worth of. With that said, let's quickly dive into the topic of this video. So that's, as you can see from the title of it, it's pretty much the Unearthed Arcana, the most recent one, which covers two subclasses for Bard and Paladin. The first one, obviously, the Bardic College of Eloquence. They are these rhetorical masterminds, mechanically quite powerful, quite powerful as party faces and support options for people that don't necessarily want to play characters that deal the most damage or are necessarily even the most effective in combat. Lore bards definitely remain one of the most solid and versatile options as generalists who cover the party's whole at lower levels. You know, they get skill proficiencies, they get this very, very powerful thing that they can do to enemies, additional magical secrets, spells, and all of that stuff. So while Lore Bard is definitely still, even with this thing existing, can be arguably considered the best Bard, or at least the most versatile one, Eloquence Bard's features seem like they actually scale better into the higher tiers of character progression and provide a very loaded but still smooth action economy. There's a certain underlying dualistic flexibility behind this class as well, like the theme is kind of dualistic. The magic of logic and reasoning that this class kind of like revolves around can empower the allies, but at the same time, if you or any other bard using from this college chooses to do so, you can, or whatever, yeah, the Eloquence Bard can put a devastating mental strain on the enemies as well. As a whole, the subclass to me doesn't feel overpowered, doesn't feel broken, but definitely looks to be on the more powerful end of the spectrum compared to other official or even Unearthed Arcana subclasses that have been released for bards up until so far. It's definitely very powerful and effective as a primary support, definitely can be very good as utility and social party face because of its features, and all of this neatly wraps into the subclass that's very, very nice and easy to roleplay in my opinion, because these features all easily translate into a brains over brawn type of character, somebody who again doesn't really resolve to combat as a first and foremost measure of resolving conflict, but reason, logic, you know, turning enemies into maybe even allies, or at least somebody who's no longer interested in hostilities and stuff like that. So how does this class actually do it? Well, first and foremost, we have this universal speech feature, which is in lower level campaigns that are heavy on mystery and intrigue, it can be very, very good for opening up many new venues of info and clue gathering. The ability to get past the language barrier is not unheard of, because telepathy and spells do exist at lower levels that kind of like allow you to do so. But these bards are not bound by usual limitations, such as certain types of creatures, for example, spells like, I don't know, speak with animals, and then maybe the targets needing to be able to speak or understand at least one language. So, for example, warlocks, a great old one warlock, let me just quickly go over that. There we go. Yeah, so for example, Awakened Mind, there's telepathy, but the creature must be able to understand at least one language. No, at level 3 of this bard, you completely don't care about any of these limitations. For 10 minutes and just one use of your bardic inspiration die, you get to benefit from advantage on all charisma checks made against the creatures, and this feature works even on creatures that don't speak any languages. So yeah, in a way it's very, very, very powerful. It can even be powerful in more war and combat oriented settings. This can be very potent tool to avoid deadly situations, gain powerful allies on your side, all for the price of just one bardic inspiration and a mere bonus action to activate this feature. Couple this with the fact that bardic inspiration actually becomes a short rest feature starting at level 5, when you get your Font of Inspiration feature, and you can really establish a vast network of connections and relationships that very few characters can even dream of achieving to the extent of this subclass being able to do so. Again, it kind of depends on what type of campaign you're playing in and what your DM allows you to do with like charisma based ability and skill checks, but yeah, in essence this is what you, at least in theory, can do. Because again, this is even the name College of Eloquence doesn't really exude the type of character who would be more interested in war and combat and resolving things in a threatening, hostile manners, but more gaining power through establishing connections and relationships other than killing everything in sight, right? So Soothing Words is another level 3 feature. It's very simple. You get to cast Calm Emotions a couple of extra times per day, but no spell slot requirement to cast this spell. That provides mental clarity to party members and or convinces enemies about the pointlessness of their hostility is actually deceptively powerful feature. Yes, all bards and clerics can cast it regardless, even if they are not of College of Eloquence, but you get to do it a couple of extra times per day. It's a perfect fit for the dualistic theme of this subclass. Your masterful oratory skills are so powerful that you can practically manipulate others' behaviors with nothing but your words. This is one of those spells that can easily give your party enough time to run away before the enemies get back to their senses, potentially ending combat encounters altogether. Coupled with universal speech, you can easily have multiple situations where this particular college subclass of Bard simply says something like, "Look, we have no interest in hurting you, and it would be much more comfortable if we all just lower our weapons down, right? Don't worry, we'll tell your boss you didn't see us anyway." And then the whole party just walks through a room full of enemies without a single drop of blood spilled. Again, this is more like an imaginary type of scenario, but this is definitely something that can very much happen first by using this spell, and second, coupled with universal speech, giving you advantage on persuasion and deception checks, as well as being able to cast this spell willy-nilly, just based on limited by your charisma modifier. So right away at level 3 you most likely can cast this spell at least 3 times per day using this feature. So again, this Calm Emotions is an action. It costs an action to use it, and then in conjunction with using Calm Emotions as your action, you use your bonus action to use universal speech, and then right away at level 3 you can have a very powerful way of avoiding spilling blood at all. It's actually very, very potent at lower levels. Depending on what types of enemies and situations you're dealing with, obviously, like there are ways that you might even be completely impossible for you to use this, but at lower levels this can be a very, very viable tactic, and even at higher levels definitely. So this is something that can be very, very easily done with this subclass. Alright, with that said, let's jump into the level 6 feature, Undeniable Logic. Failure is the part of the game. That's the unfortunate reality of the game. Sometimes you roll those natural ones, and regardless of what your bonus is, the DC might be too high, or maybe it's just an attack roll and then it's an automatic miss. So universal speech and soothing words will inevitably as well fail sooner or later. You will be forced to fight your way through every now and then at the very least. So once you hit level 6 and get this actual feature, you won't be relegated to the jester on the sidelines hurling insults at enemies and annoying your friends with your boastful displays of magical healing musicality, right? What I'm talking about here is casting Vicious Mockery and Healing Word every turn, right? Which is something that a lot of bards actually end up doing in combat more often than not. At least in my experience, the way I've seen them. No, actually quite the opposite. With your newly found Short Rest Bardic Inspiration, which you got at level 5 from your Font of Inspiration, you will still be able to hurt and heal, but your bullshit logic and reasoning will affect the minds of your targets so deep and so profoundly that they will either be super distracted, meaning that they will have disadvantage on next saving throws, or super inspired, meaning that they will have advantage on next saving throws for your allies, right? So this gives you an alternative way of using your Bardic Inspiration that, again, you can use your Bardic Inspiration in just a generic way that all bards get to do, right? So just like giving your allies Bardic Inspiration so that they can have better odds of rolling higher damage or, I don't know, succeeding on saving throws or whatever. But this is very, very potent as well, particularly for enforcing disadvantage on enemies' saving throws. Debuffing is one of the portions of 5th edition that is a little bit underpowered, and this subclass getting this type of feature, which definitely is more on the debuffing side, like inflicting some debilitating effect to the enemy, is very, very good, because I think there should be more, let's say, focus on features that actually do negative stuff to enemies outside of dealing damage, right? I think that's oftentimes more interesting, allows for more versatility, allows for more party synergy and all of that stuff. So yeah, all in all, both mechanics can be equally potent depending on the type of threat, party composition, number of enemies, and other factors that you're dealing with. This is something that I cannot account for because there are infinite amount of possibilities there, but obviously both of these things would be very, very potent. And again, it goes back to that dualistic nature with your reasoning and logic being so magically potent that you can debilitate the mind and mental abilities of your enemies, but at the same time inspire, embolden, empower your allies by providing magical clarity and whatever type of mental magical bonus benefit this feature provides, right? So yeah, that's about it. And finally we get to level 14, Infectious Inspiration. I think, okay, so this might be one of the more powerful level 14 features. I'm not gonna say it's the most powerful. There are some bonkers features, like Glamour, I think, comes to mind, with its Unbreakable Majesty being pretty much impossible to hit it a lot of times. But this is very, very potent, because one of the worst feelings with Bardic Inspiration is when you roll the die and still fail at what you wanted to accomplish. And even though waiting 14 levels before you can effectively get many more additional uses of Bardic Inspiration. Okay, so just to clarify, I'm not talking about you as yourself using Bardic Inspiration. I mean like giving Bardic Inspiration to somebody else as a core class feature here, right? So just to be absolutely clear, we are on the same page here. So doing that, using your core Bardic Inspiration feature you get at level 1, once you hit level 14, you effectively get many more additional uses of the Bardic Inspiration beyond your Charisma modifier limit, right? So you are limited by your Charisma modifier. It does offer a unique way to significantly increase the mileage and effectiveness of Bard's signature core feature. In theory, you only need to spend one bonus action, because this is another one of those bonus action features, and use one of your Bardic Inspirations in a slightly different way, right? To get the chain going until the end of combat. If the target uses it, and it's still, and if it fails, if for example, if your ally fails, and it still has it, that Bardic Inspiration doesn't get lost, just because the core feature says so. This is like the specific case. This specific subclass gives you the ability to keep that bardic inspiration going as long as somebody keeps failing, that bardic inspiration is not spent. And if the target succeeds, you can still keep it going, just like one use of bardic inspiration. All you need is to be relatively close, 60 feet. I think it's 60 feet, right? Yeah, it's 60 feet, and a reaction. And pretty much this gives you a very, very decent use of your reaction. To give that already kind of spent use of bardic inspiration and refresh it, give it to another creature. By the time you get to level 14, you most likely have your charisma at 18, probably at 20, so your modifier is +4, +5 in most cases, which means you can keep using reactions and moving that basically one use of bardic inspiration, one bardic inspiration die, from one ally to another for the same number of rounds that your charisma modifier is during the combat. And typically at higher levels, combats do resolve somewhat quicker. So at lower levels, mid tiers, combats can actually last even beyond 1 minute, or beyond 5 minutes, 5 rounds, very easily. But at higher levels, combats do resolve quite quickly, so you most likely won't run out of uses of this feature for at least 2 combats. Especially if you consider that your allies are not gonna be actually spending bardic inspiration the first time they get the chance to do so. Oftentimes, people want to conserve the bardic inspiration for saving throws, especially at higher levels, where succeeding on saving throws becomes more a thing that's better to focus on, instead of like turning your misses into hits or whatever, right? So yeah, in a way you can gain a lot of mileage out of this. And again, when your ally fails with the use of bardic inspiration, that bardic inspiration is not spent. So this is very potent in my opinion. And that concludes it for the Oath of Eloquence. I don't think it's weak. I don't think it's overly overpowered. I just think it's very powerful, but compared to the fact that we already have a precedence for very powerful officially released bards in the game, starting all the way back from lore released in 2014 to Xanatar's Glamour and even Whispers, which are very potent and powerful in their own way. So when compared to them, there's this asymmetrical kind of balance. And I don't think this subclass actually shines over or overshadows any of these other official ones. So yeah, I just think even if it gets released in this particular state with no changes, I don't think it's gonna be... compared to a lot of Unearthed Arcana playtest materials, which are oftentimes underpowered, completely all over the place, or completely broken and overpowered, which we are going to be talking about very soon in this very video. This one, I think it's very close to what I would consider a very polished class. There might be some things that might need a little bit of touching here and there, maybe limiting with half charisma modifier instead of a full charisma. I don't know. It's up to a debate, but as a whole, this feels pretty on point with what we already have in game. With that said, let's jump into the Heroism Paladin, Oath of the Heroism. The stereotypical hero who embraces the divine destiny bestowed upon him or her by the deities or other heavenly sources. The mix of offensive, defensive, and support options provides a very powerful but more or less balanced mix. That said, Heroism's capstone feature is completely ridiculous and broken, and not that big of a problem, only because very few characters ever get to reach level 20, and even fewer get to play too long at level 20 beyond that. So let's just quickly start dissecting each and every one of these. Oath spells, being a hero paladin, kind of like the archetype of hero, is quite generic, so it allows for a wider range of spells to be included with this subclass. That said, a lot of these spells are actually quite powerful and make sense thematically, but at the same time make this class very, very powerful in its own regard. Expeditious Retreat is godsend for any melee class who struggles with relative distances. It's just basically doubles your movement speed using your bonus action, gives you something to do with your bonus action. It's a first level spell, obviously deals with the oftentimes very tough thing to deal with for melee characters, which is distances and not enough movement speed. So yeah, I think this is good on a paladin, and you getting this is gonna help you very, very much, especially at any point, you know, because sometimes all you need is just more movement speed. Enhanced ability, no, sorry, Guiding Bolt is there just in case you still can't reach your target, and it's one of the better steals from the cleric's list. And on top of that, it both deals damage and helps your allies land their swings and shots obviously more easily. Enhanced ability is kind of a bit worse on Paladin, because you know, any other full caster that has this on this list, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, they get to use it at level 3, you get it at level 5, you know, so there's a slightly bit of a difference there, and obviously you have less spell slots, less higher level slots, so you can really upcast it that effectively, but it is still a very nice universal tool for maximizing odds of success at anything that involves any type of ability check. And heroes kind of like suffer from this little bit of a Mary Sue-ish, Gary Stu-ish syndrome of being better at doing all sorts of stuff, you know, than ordinary types of flawed characters and just like anti-heroes, or even resentful, or, you know, heroes that don't really want to be heroes or stuff like that. So yeah, but that definitely kind of fits into that archetype a little bit, and it's definitely useful. Enthrall is a bit situational, not gonna lie, but it's an often underrated spell, and especially because it doesn't require concentration, it lasts for a full minute, and if you make the enemy focus on you, the party's rogue is going to have much easier time sneaking around. And it kind of depends a little bit on your party composition, depends on obviously a bit of a range. It doesn't have a lot of a range and stuff like that, but it can affect a lot of creatures, can be quite potent control spell, and due to the fact you basically get it for free, it's on your list once you hit level 5, you know, sooner or later you might actually get in a position that this spell can be actually quite useful for the amount of creatures that you have to deal with. So yeah, definitely consider it as I do consider it as a nice addition to this subclass. Haste, I've spoken about this spell so far like a lot of times in a lot of my videos. If you've been watching my videos for any amount of time, this is just, I mean, it's known. Haste is already known to be super juicy on Vengeance Pallies due to their increased critical chance coming from their Channel Divinity, right? So you are basically let me just find the Channel Divinity. So Guided Strike, no, that's not that. Channel Divinity, nope. Too many of them. There we go. So look at that. Basically, Vow of Enmity, and using you have advantage, so that pretty much gives you almost 10% chance of critting, and then you stack haste on top of it, gives you one more attack, obviously advantage on dex save, something a lot of paladins struggle with, because most paladins dump their dexterity, put an 8 or at most 10 into their dexterity, so dexterity saving throws at lower levels, even at higher levels, are very prevalent type of saving throw, and it bumps that, and also a +2 bonus to AC. One thing though, it is concentration, but it's a very powerful spell, gives you an additional action that you can use to attack, dash, disengage, doubles your movement speed, and yeah, you can use hide or even use it's very versatile in the way you can apply it. You can apply it defensively as increasing your obviously movement speed, in whatever way, shape or form you want, and I think you will enjoy practically the same benefit as Vengeance Pallies, because we are gonna talk about it very quickly. Protection from energy is the spell I'd never learn or prepare, I don't think ever. I don't think so, because it's just so specifically situational and dependent on the foreknowledge of the type of situation that you're going to be dealing with. On top of that, it's a concentration. And then most of the time, even if the creature or whatever you're dealing with, it's in most cases there are multiple types of damages coming your way, so you're gonna get damaged one way or another, and then you'll risk losing concentration. And then it's a third level, whatever. It's haste is much better, trust me. So just, yeah, you get it for free, so whatever. But if you can't really choose, that's true. But so if it just happens that you know that what you're getting into is, it's gonna involve a specific type of elemental damage, and only that type of elemental damage, and a lot of quantities of that type of elemental damage, sure, it might be the best spell for the occasion, but 9 out of 10 times, heck, 99 out of 100 times, it's pretty much gonna be a dead weight on your list. That said, you don't really get to choose, so yeah, it is what it is. Compulsion is quite potent control spells when dealing with multiple enemies. It's similar to Enthrall, but obviously better effect, a higher level spell. It's like they have to move, so you can rearrange their positions. It's obviously a higher level spell, therefore a much better effect. And when dealing with masses of enemies, sometimes casting this spell can literally change the entire flow of the combat depending on the position of the monsters. So yeah, I'm not gonna go too deep into this because there are factors that come into play that I cannot. It would last another hour, but it's definitely very, very powerful. Okay, so this is not. That's something wrong, so whatever. Freedom of movement is probably the best spell you get from this subclass, considering how prevalent the 3 conditions it negates are. So let me just quickly go over this spell. Yeah, okay, so if you were thinking about what I was just talking about a little bit before, I had a little bit of an inconsistency in my script for this video, and yeah, that kind of caught me a little bit off guard. So just disregard anything about that I said, like that doesn't make any sense. I was referring to my script. So anyway, you touch a willing creature, which can be yourself, can be somebody else, whatever. It is a high level spell, it's a 4th level spell for you. You only have a couple 4th level slots. It is gonna be slightly worse for you, but that's it. It's probably the best spell overall you get from this particular subclass, considering how prevalent the 3 conditions that this spell deals with are. Grappled, restrained, and okay, so restrained and paralyzed can only be magical effects and spells. But however, unaffected by difficult terrain might actually come up, even though that's kind of like a minor benefit. The best benefit that I see from this spell is the basically immunity to paralyze, restrain, and grapple. You are sort of immune to grapple by spending your movement. You know, but on the other hand, you kind of are immune to paralyzed or restrained. A lot of effects that cause these 2 conditions are magical and originating from spells, so effectively you are immune to these 3 conditions, you know, in most cases. And yeah, basically I just think this thing is very, very, very potent, and yeah, it's kind of very, very I just have nothing. Okay, so something popped to my mind, which I just thought. The target can also spend 5 feet of movement to automatically escape, such as manacles or a creature that has it grappled. But if you're grappled, your speed is 0. That never popped to my mind before now. I'm gonna have to look into that a bit later. Check the comments. There's probably some sage advice about that, because for some reason this never popped to my mind, but I'm sure I'm not the first one. So, yeah, being grappled, your movement speed is 0, so how do you spend 5 feet of movement? Weird. But anyway, yeah, I mean, immunity to paralyze or restrained is still ridiculous. No question about it. So yeah, commune, and, actually, no, let me just check in real quick. Let's just check this thing. So commune, grappled, sage, advice, 0 speed. Like it's just a bunch of weird search results. Okay, so this might be something based on the... Yeah, so this kind of like follows the line of thought. But the grappled, yeah, speed of 0, there we go. Per sage advice, free movement is an example of a feature that lets you circumvent the general rule. Ah! Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, obviously, your speed is 0, but it doesn't mean that you lose your movement speed, right? When you're grappled... Oh, so today we'll all learn. I learn, maybe you learn, because a grappled creature's speed becomes 0. But the grappled creature's speed becomes 0. So... Oh, this might be one of those inconsistencies, right? So under freedom, if you escape, your speed isn't 0. Oh, well, you have to escape for your... But that's chicken and egg argument. So I guess this might be one of those specific rules which allows you to use your movement speed even though you're grappled, because this spell is... I mean, it literally doesn't make sense. If your speed is 0, how can you spend any of movement speed, right? Anyway, let's not spend too much time. I'm probably gonna talk about it in the comments. So, yeah, I just never thought about it for some reason. Commune is the... Look, so commune, as a 5th level spell for you, is the direct line of contact with the deities and divine aspects that have given you power to be the hero. It's just, you know, you can flavor it that way, obviously, but this spell in general is very, very powerful. It's a cleric-only spell, therefore it's a bard spell as well, if the bard chooses for it to be, with magical secrets. But I think, like, this spell is one of... Once you get this spell, you can really drive your DM crazy with a lot of questions every day, obviously. 3 questions. Sure, you might receive unclear, but at some point the DM has to start telling you yes or no or whatever, you know. So just the way you ask questions, if you know how to ask a question properly, then obviously you can benefit from this very, very much, because gods definitely know more than you. So yeah, I mean, this is depending on what type of thing you're dealing with, obviously, what type of scenario, what type of question you want to know answer to. This can be maybe even campaign changing type of spell, you know, depending on whether, you know, a DM hasn't been exactly prepared for this type of spell, and then you ask a question which, like, the entire campaign hangs around. You know, maybe you ask a question, I don't know, any type of question with a yes or no answer, and then the DM is like, you know, I can lie and say unclear, but then I have to change my campaign, right? Because if I just reveal at the end that it actually, you know, the answer was yes or no or not unclear, it's really, really tricky, right? So, yeah, basically, it's very, very powerful. Not gonna talk about it anymore. It just depends. There's so many possibilities that you can use it and get some information which will radically change the way you approach your future, anything that you're dealing with, you know, scenarios, encounters, people, villains, allies, whatever. Conjure Volley, finally, the level 5 spell, the last one that you get. I mean, sure. Look, I've recently talked about ranger spells. This is basically a ranger spell. You get it as a paladin from this subclass. It allows you to rain down 1,000,000 daggers from the skies at the horde of enemies coming at you. You know, it's nothing special. It's an AoE spell. It's decent range, decent radius, 40-foot radius. That's like 80 feet diameter. That's a large radius that you can affect with this spell. And if you're dealing with the horde of a lot of monsters that are relatively weak, but there's a lot of them, 8d8 damage is actually quite decent amount of damage, even for a 17th level character, you know. So, yeah, I mean, half-casters do just suffer from the fact that they never actually reach the spellcasting potential of full casters, but, you know, for the limit of spells that you have access to, this is a decent AoE option, you know, so you pretty much have nothing better than this, so yeah. Anyway, finally, Channel Divinities. Neither Channel Divinity offers you something bombastic, but Both use a bonus action, so that's very, very good, because that really ties neatly into your action economy. And they provide benefits that synergize so well with the spells and features of this subclass. Peerless Athlete basically makes you into a grapple shove machine, because advantage on athletics or acrobatics for the next 10 minutes. I mean, pretty much if you want to shove or grapple somebody, you make an athletics check, right? Strength athletics check. Basically, yeah, during potentially multiple combats with the extended duration, 10 minutes, it can, if you're in the dungeon crawl and you finish one encounter and then immediately go into another within the span of 10 minutes, with just one use of this channel divinity, you can affect multiple combats. It's very, very good. So once you get your haste spell at level 9, you can use the attack action from the haste spell, right? And prone the enemy using the shove option, right? So if we go back to, let's just quickly reference this. So shoving a creature using the attack action, you can make a special melee attack, blah, blah, blah. Athletics, acrobatics, you know, it's a opposing check between you and the enemy. And you prone the creature, you have advantage, so you have much better odds. Allowing you to use your regular action, allowing you and other melee allies to have advantage on all of their attacks. That includes your regular attack action with two attacks, you know. And then on top of that, obviously, all of your melee allies, barbarians, fighters, maybe even rangers, whatever character is using melee types of attacks, advantage as well. So it's very, very potent just on its own, obviously. But also in conjunction with some of your features and spells, obviously. So, yeah, I think it's very, very potent in that regard. Legendary Strike, however, it's kind of a copy of Champion's Fighter's Improved Critical, but it only lasts 1 minute, and it requires a bonus action compared to Champion Fighter's Improved Critical being just a passive feature. You know, it's just always on. But it's actually good, because, first and foremost, your crits, your critical hits, are that much better with Divine Smite, which is the core feature that every paladin has. I'm sure you know about it. Every time you smite, it pretty much, you know, instead of rolling 2d8, 3d8, you roll 4, you double the amount of damage dice that you roll. And your level 7 feature, Mighty Deed, which once per turn, if you score a critical or a last hit, you get to either spread temporary hit points to your allies or frighten multiple enemies in a short radius around you. 30 feet. It's not a big radius, but it's not a particularly big range. But oftentimes you are actually dealing with a lot of melee enemies, and they are right around you, you know. And most paladins are melee characters anyway. Majority, probably like overwhelming majority. The amount of potential targets equals your charisma modifier, but there is no limit to how many times you can do this per day. This is a once per round, once per turn, once per round basically feature, and this obviously synergizes extremely well with Legendary Strike, because Legendary Strike gives you a 10% chance, and then obviously with Haste, because Haste gives you one more attack. You know, so often turning multiple enemies into cowards and effectively providing a ton of healing to the entire party, getting bombarded with fireballs, dragon breath weapons, and other damaging AoE effects. That's just, you know, very potent. You know, I'm not gonna say it's broken, because it does rely on you landing a critical hit or landing a last hit. So, you know, it's not often that happens, but for you, it definitely can happen more often than not, because just on your own, you can have 10% chance, and then maybe if you have advantage by some of your party member giving you advantage in some way from some spell like, I don't know, Fairy Fire or whatever, somebody casting greater invisibility on you. You know, there are ways. So effectively, you can have almost 20% chance to land a critical hit. And then you combine it with Haste, which gives you additional attacks. So, and then you combine it with Polar Mastery feat, which gives you a bonus. Ew, bro, we are talking about 4 attacks, maybe even 5, using your reaction Sentinel feat. You know, this can be really, really, really powerful to do, because there's no limit to the amount of times you can use this, and the more attacks you have, which you can obviously optimize around with feats, maybe even some multi-classing and obviously spells. This can really this can snowball into the late game, you know, very, very much, because again, especially at higher levels, you get more and more combat encounters that you are dealing with AoE damage, with effects that area of effects that deal damage, so everybody in the party gets damaged, and then every time you land a critical hit, you give them temporary hit points, which they lose, but then you give them back to them once again. It's, you know, it's very, very potent. I don't think it's broken, I don't think it's overpowered, but it is very powerful. There's no denying that. Glorious Defense, if there's a feature that kind of puts it more on the even scale with other paladins in the game, it's this one. The effectiveness of this feature is kind of like, it suffers from issues similar to shield spell, right? So as it, you know, shield spell largely depends on how your DM resolves enemy attack rolls. I personally, in my own games, when I DM, tell my players the number I roll on a d20, but they don't get to know the attack roll bonus. So a monster might have a +7 to hit or might have a +11 to hit. They don't get to know that. But still, there is a difference knowing if the enemy hits you with 11 on a d20, you know, 11 plus the attack roll modifier, or a 19 on a d20, 19 plus plus attack roll modifier. There's a difference, you know, of 8, 7, whatever. So when I roll a 19 on a d20 and then I tell the player, okay, I hit you and I rolled 19 on the d20, do you want to cast shield? And the player pretty much says no. You know, why would I do that? And then like another time when I hit a player and I tell the player, okay, I actually hit you with 7, I rolled 7 on a d20, so with an added attack roll modifier, it pretty much landed on your AC, probably even exceeded it a little bit. That's the way I do it. I don't think it's the best way, but it's just the thing that I do think it's probably the best way, but that's just my opinion, you know. Some DMs roll in the open. You know exactly how much the enemy's attack roll total exceeds your armor class. I've noticed this rolling in the open occurring much more often in online play, in online sessions, because sometimes DMs are just, I don't know, lazy or don't care that much, and just like, you know exactly how much the monster rolled. So I don't like doing it, not only for the shield spell per se, but also for the effects like cutting words that bards have, obviously, you know, and then that kind of diminishes the fact that cutting words, for example, is there's an implication in this feature that's kind of like, you know, you shouldn't know the number rolled, you know, before you use the bardic inspiration. Attack roll, ability check, or damage roll, you know, it kind of, it's not said, but when a creature rolls, you can use your reaction to expend, you know, the number, but before the DM determines whether the attack roll or ability check succeeds or fails, you know. If the DM rolls in the open, you know your AC, right? And your AC is 15, and you're a lore bard, and the enemy rolls 17, you know the enemy rolled 17, of course you're gonna use cutting words, you know. There's like, you don't need the DM to tell you whether the attack roll or ability check succeeds or fails, you know it succeeds. So that's why I ultimately, for these types of features, shield spell, cutting words, there are a couple of others, let's not get too deep into it, but obviously that's the reasoning, you know. Again, some DMs like rolling in the open. Some DMs go exactly, like, completely the other way around. They don't tell you anything past the, yeah, it's a hit, do you want to cast shield, or do you want to use cutting words. If you ever get to play this subclass at level 15, talk to your DM in advance to know how he or she typically resolves that scenario. I just, like, the game does leave it up to DM to decide. Some DMs in real life tabletop scenarios, they don't even use DM screens. So even if you don't want, you inadvertently sometimes see how much the enemy rolls on a saving throw or attack roll or whatever. So yeah, I mean, definitely you would know that you kind of have to know with a feature like this in advance how the DM resolves the effect of it, you know. So definitely talk to your DM. And then finally, before we get into the living myth, regardless of all of this thing, like how the DM resolves, I think this is a balanced feature. It requires a reaction, has no guarantee of success, but if the attack does miss, you know, with your the thing that's with your charisma modifier added on top of your AC, you get to dump another hefty chunk of divine smite damage onto the enemy. This is pretty much on par with other, for example, Vengeance has a kind of like a differently triggered level 15 reaction attack, you know. So it kind of follows that level 15 power curve, in my opinion. And every feature is different, obviously it's not a copy-paste, but I think it's just fine, you know. It's basically a level 15 shield that doesn't require a slot, but, you know, at the same time it's a level 15, so you should get a little bit more, so you get to at least make a weapon attack. So yeah, I think it's balanced. However, with all of this said, living myth, I already mentioned this. First and foremost, few characters ever reach level 20, even fewer get to play out their level 20 characters using their capstone features. However, this one is, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous. Bonus action means you can still attack multiple times during the same round you activate this. Advantage on charisma checks isn't that powerful other than a buff to dispel magic. Oh, by the way, it lasts 10 minutes. Just keep that in mind. But turning a missed attack into a hit, just like you miss, okay, I don't miss, I hit. Why? Because, whatever, I have this feature activated. I used my bonus action and I just immediately get the benefit from it. And even worse than that, turning a failed saving throw into a success is absolutely crazy broken and overpowered, in my opinion, even for a level 20 feature. We are gonna go back to Bard. Okay, Bards at level 20, if when you roll initiative and have no use of Bardic Inspiration, you regain 1 use. Big fucking deal. Level 20 monks. Level 20 monks, if you have no key points at the beginning of the whatever initiative, you gain 4 key points. At level 20, 4 key points. Short rest feature, at level 20 you gain 4 of them. That's the level 20 power that you get. Just compare it to this bullshit. And then, I don't know, sorcerer is probably even, it's really like at level 20 4 sorcery points whenever you finish a short rest. Wow. 4 sorcery points at the end of short. Something that you can do by combining 3 levels of Warlock and 2 levels of Sorcerer. You get it. Yeah, that's just whatever. Whatever, bro. And then let's not even talk about Rangers, who at level 20 get a good old, you know, you get to add your, what, Wisdom modifier? I don't even know. It's so shit I forget every time. You can add your Wisdom modifier to the attack roll against one of your favored enemies. So it's not all. It's only your favored enemies, you know. Yeah, that's the big ass level 20 power that the ranger gets. You being a level 20 paladin, this particular one. Okay, so think about this. You know, Tiamat, a level like a literal goddess of dragons, can turn a failed saving throw into a success 5 times per day. Legendary resistance, literally 5 uses of it per day. You, being a level 20 paladin, for 10 minutes have effectively up to 100 uses of legendary resistance trait for 10 minutes. I mean, sure, the effect fits the name of the feature, definitely, you know, living myth, this is definitely mythical level of power, but what about some good old balance, you know? Balance, Wizards of the Coast? What the fuck is this? I don't know. Look, let's go back to Paladins. Let's turn all of these things and let's compare them to the heroism, you know. So there we go. Okay, look, So, first and foremost, Oath of Conquest. Takes an action, lasts a minute. Decent bonus. But it takes an action, lasts a minute. Taking an action is worse than a bonus action. A minute duration is worse than 10 minutes, right? Effect is not as good as this one. It's powerful. Resistance to all damage is nuts. One additional attack is really great. Critical hits on 19 to 20. I mean, Vengeance Paladins get that at level... No, I mean, literally you get it at level 3. So, yeah, whatever, you know. This part is... But these first two benefits, really good. However, compared to this, I don't think they stack up. I don't think they are at the same level of power. They are close, but they're not the same level of power, I think. Bonus action. So bonus action is better than an action. 10 minutes is better than 1 minute, obviously. Let's go to Devotion. Again, 1 minute requires an action to turn on, right? Yeah, as an action for 1 minute. Action is worse than a bonus action. 1 minute is worse than a 10 minutes, obviously. 10 radiant damage, whatever. It's not much damage. It's pretty much once on each of your turns when you make the attack. Turning a missed attack roll into a hit is gonna deal more damage, more than 10 damage at level 20, guaranteed. Guaranteed. So, yeah, I mean, comparing the damage to damage, you're gonna deal more damage with this than this, right? And then, in addition, for the duration, you have advantage, whatever. You have advantage against spells, but it's specifically only against fiends and undead. If you're not dealing with fiends and undead, you're out of luck, you know, you're just rolling basic saving throws. If you're a heroism paladin, you know, if you fail a saving throw, you can use your reaction to succeed, you know. Every round, you get to succeed on one saving throw, even if you fail. Balance. There, so we are already kind of comparing apples to apples here. Oath of Redemption. Okay, Oath of Redemption. The only capstone paladin feature that is kind of close to the power that the heroism gets. This one, I think so, which, you know, requires no activation, lasts indefinitely. You get to level 20, you are this. You are Emissary of Redemption, there's no duration, no activation, it just is. You are that. So in a way, that's clearly much better. Resistance to all damage dealt by other creatures, similar to Conquest, but obviously much better because it lasts indefinitely. It's synergy. Whenever a creature hits you with the attack, it takes radiant damage equal to the half damage you take from the attack. Okay, so look, let me get it straight. Whenever a creature hits you with an attack, so if the creature has multiple attacks and, I don't know, deals 20-30 damage with each attack, you bring all of that damage, you deal half of that damage back. So half of 20 damage, that's 10, half of 20 damage, that's 10, so maybe you deal 30 out of 60 damage back to that creature, right? I'm talking about averages here, right? So this can definitely on average deal more damage than this, you know. In most cases at level 20. I'm not denying that, but come on. It's still that if you fail a saving throw, you just succeed, you know. That's still bonkers, you know. So I think Oath of Redemption capstone feature definitely comes very close. Avenging Angel, you know, action 1 minute, not nearly as powerful as this, not even close. Flying speed and, you know, frightened condition at level 20. I mean, that's what Conquest can do at level 7, right? Whatever. Ancients, okay, 1 minute, you know, again, action 1 minute, that's worse. Healing, it's like, okay, so, sure, you heal 10 hit points, but that's what Redemption Pallies get at level 15, sort of, you know. You have this Protective Spirit, which, if you are below one half of your hit points, 1d6 plus half your Paladin level, so that's what, that's like 13 on average, 13.5. You know, not that good. It's good, not that good though, for level 20. Whenever, these two are good. These two are good though, I'm not denying that. Bonus, like all of your one action spells are actually casting one bonus action. And all of the enemies within 10 feet have disadvantage against your spells and this is very powerful. Not denying that. However, still, one action, 1 minute. Bonus action 10 minutes. This is still better than this. And finally, Oath of the Crown. It is 1 hour, so it's better, but it's still an action, so it's worse. Only resistance to non-magical physical damage. Advantage on death saves. That's very situational. Advantage on wisdom saves is very good. However, again, redemption is the only one that comes somewhat close, in my opinion, to the level of power that this feature provides. And yeah, basically, if you're playing in some level 20 one-shot and the DM allows Unearthed Arcana sources, be Heroism Paladin, because even if you fail, you still succeed. In my opinion, the easy way to balance this feature, the easiest way, is very simple. Just limit the amount of uses that you can use these two benefits up to the charisma modifier of the paladin, of this paladin, right? So, like most other paladin features, divine sense, even this paladin is limited, you know, your charisma modifier, there we go, your charisma modifier, I think it's even here, you know, up to your charisma modifier, you know. So why are you limiting all these other features up to your charisma modifier, but not this one? Why? That literally doesn't make, like, how did somebody think that giving a paladin, a mortal creature, okay, you're level 20, sure, you're powerful, blah blah blah, you're a demigod. Still, how do you get 100 uses of legendary resistance when a god gets only 5? Come on, let's talk about fucking balance here, you know. Give him 5 legendary resistances. Give him 5 missed attack rolls turned into hits. Just whatever, you know, because he's a living myth. But don't make it up to 100 times per round, per 10 minutes. That's gross. At the very least, this feature needs to be an action to activate. And 1 minute of duration, at the very least. Even though, if you just make that change, I still think it's bonkers, broken, overpowered. This I just don't think this should ever become official, the way it's currently written. So yeah, that's just my opinion based on playing the game and playing high levels, DMing for high levels. This is just nuts. This doesn't make any sense. Not at least in 5th edition, you know. Yeah, sure, we can make broken stuff, but then we are maybe talking about other editions and stuff like that. So, yeah, anyway, that's it, guys. Another video about only 2 subclasses, but somehow managed to talk an hour about them. For some reason, you people seem to like what I do here, so like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button, you know the YouTube drill. Every little bit of interaction with my videos and my channel helps. I am gonna invite you once again to consider chucking a buck my way if you think that my effort here, my content and all of the stuff that I do here is worth your hard-earned cash. Once again, shout out to all my patrons. Yeah, with that said, I am gonna be releasing a couple more videos in the next, I don't know, 11 days. 11-12 days. I am way behind on the 50 videos in 50 days challenge, so I don't think it's even physically possible for me to catch up at this point, and not gonna lie, I kind of gave up a couple of days ago anyway, but I'm gonna keep a steady pace of these new videos coming up, don't you worry about it, because I'm determined to actually get to 100 videos, because I've been postponing some of the topics way too long, and even though I still think that I can do better than what I sometimes do for my videos, sometimes less is more, you know, and when I release videos that I haven't been thinking about for, like, I don't know, weeks, and just release them in the way that I think it's best at the current state that I can do, it's probably better, because at least it gets the discussion going, and then we can all learn some new stuff instead of me trying desperately to make something that, you know, nobody else made. Obviously, that's kind of impossible at this point, especially with official classes. Official classes, the rate and frequency of release of the official subclasses is very slow, and pretty much the Xanatars got released, what, like 2 years ago at this point? So, yeah, I mean, I will be releasing more Unearthed Arcana in the coming weeks and months, because coming back to my channel, there is quite a bit of you who are playing using, you know, Unearthed Arcana. So, how many? I think like 60-something% of you are using Unearthed Arcana. Maybe even more. Let me just see. So 29 plus 16, that's 45 plus 8. Who can be donkey dragons with giant platypus eggs, whatever. So that's what, like 53% of you? Yeah, that's a sizable amount of people who are playing with Unearthed Arcana. So, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be releasing that because why not? I mean, I am also sometimes pondering just like toying with those ideas, and obviously if you're playing with those, I am interested in releasing more videos like those. And yeah, anyway, not gonna talk about my future plans anymore. The video is already way too long, so with that said, once again, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button, consider chucking a buck at me. With that said, MinMax Munchkin out, and see you and talk to you soon.